So this is our first paper prompt. This will be the diagnostic essay, and I just wanted to go over a couple of things to in case it's not clear in the directions. So there's not a whole lot of direction anyway, because again, it's meant to be a diagnostic. That doesn't mean you just should be doing whatever you want. So let's talk about a couple of things here. First, I want to tell you here that I'm not, this goes for the whole class, really. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and scrutinize correctness and mark down every little, um, error you make and things like that. That's not the point of this assignment, and that's not the point of this class, really. So, um, what I'm really more interested in is getting an overall idea of where you stand as a writer. And this is going to help me sort of shape the class and determine which directions we ought to head for the remainder of the semester. Um, with that said, um, I want you to MLA or APA format. Let's try to stick with MLA format for the time being, at least, probably for the whole class, but we'll see. We can take that on as it comes up. 2 or 3 pages. Um, so get your mind sort of in that gear. That's what we're going to be working with here. And I want you to explain the difference between Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. In so doing, I want you to exercise plenty of critical thinking, put it on full display. Um, Ultimately, in your explanation of the difference between these views, I want you to argue for which one do you think is the fairest and most just, and for, perhaps a lack of a better way of saying it, which is the better or correct view. It might be helpful to think of your audience. Um, let's say as a group of fellow college students. Um, Maybe this group of students can honestly see merit in both points of view. But they're looking for input. They're looking for reasoned, um, meaningful, clear points of view as to, or that would help them make a decision one way or the other, which one is, which which direction they want to lean, which view they want to adopt. I've highlighted here, this is important. So the goal of this essay is not to arrive at some right answer that I, Justin, personally am looking for. All right. This is not about me. This is not trying to guess at what this ain't that. I'm not grading you at all on your points of view. This is to demonstrate your ability to explain competing viewpoints clearly, reason carefully, and support your argument thoughtfully. That's what I'm going to be paying attention to. All right. Let's see. You know, here we're in advanced comp, so I don't feel it necessary to go over every single little item that we ought to be including in these types of essays. Think back, introduction, body, conclusion, that kind of stuff. Um, you know, carry on, continue in that way what you learned in Comp 1 and Comp 2. But I just want to highlight a few things here that I think would be helpful. Um, I want you to make sure that you effectively contextualize what you're writing about up front, somewhere in or near the introduction. Lots of context and lots of background could help, will help your reader understand not only the topic, but as you go through and explaining each view, and then especially once it starts to become clear what your argument is, this context is going to become important. You don't want to have your reader or your audience guessing or assuming what you mean and what you're talking about. Again, so one of the main parts of it, explain thoroughly what each view is comprised of. You know, the thoughts, the ideas, the um, maybe what I thought you could do here is maybe hop onto social media, for example, um, and see if you could find a couple. You know, this is not a research paper. Find some posts, for example, that are sort of emblematic of how you see each of these views. You know, I'm not looking for articles here. I'm not looking for long drawn out. I want something punchy. I'm thinking of something punchy, something concise, something that really encapsulates and reflects sort of how you see each of these points of view. And maybe you can include it in your paper as a like an image, embed an image. Um, of course, taking great care to, thoroughly explain and don't just let the image, if you choose to go this route, you don't have to, by the way. I just thought it might be a useful way into a type of paper like this. Please don't just assume that the images are going to speak for you. You know, pretend your audience or your reader is not making any connection between the image and what you had written so far. So take great care to lay it all out for them. Why you chose this image, what does it mean? Um, and by image, I mean, for example, again, a social media post. Um, don't take it for granted that they'll just assume they know what you mean. I want you to argue. You know, this is often helped out by language that sounds like I argue that or my argument is. Um, don't shy away from that word. Even throughout your paper, throughout your body paragraphs, refer to your argument, hold up your argument, and illuminate your argument. Let your reader know exactly what you're arguing. In so doing, as you begin to argue and come around to one view or the other, and I'd like it to be that way. I'm hoping that you don't end up, straddling the fence. I mean, if that's honestly where you land, then, so be it. But um, choosing or establishing and arguing one stance, one view or the other, um, there's a reason why I'm hoping that it breaks out like that is because you have to write a certain way. And that's what I want to see come through in your paper. A lot of times when people sit on the fence, what happens is they'll basically just end up explaining both sides and they really won't make an argument. And your paper will suffer if that happens. So whatever you do, just try to make an argument. Um, what I was going to say before I got off on that brief tangent, as you make your argument, don't neglect the rebuttal. Point out the other point of view, why you didn't chose it, why you see it as, I don't know, deficient or unjust or just plain old wrong. Whatever um, position you choose, whatever rebuttal you see yourself mounting, thoroughly explain it. Again, one of the things I want to try and do in this class with y'all is leaving things up for inference or assumption. Make it clear, elaborate your point of view so that you leave the reader with no doubt. Optional, I don't know why I made this optional. I really would like you to do this too. Um, I guess the reason why I put it as optional is these first 3 points that could easily take you into this range where you're basically finished with the paper. And, if you tack on a whole reflective section, you could be really going overboard in terms of volume. Okay. If you find that you feel like you've responded to these first 3 points sufficiently, and you're confident and you're comfortable with that, and you're well in the page range, maybe even over, if you don't feel like writing this, that's okay. But listen, as we're gonna learn in this class, reflection is very important. And especially, with topics like this, like what we're going to talk about throughout the semester, probably, hopefully, um, taking great care in engaging with these discourses. It's very helpful, very beneficial to reflect regularly on our writing, on our thoughts, on the way we express ourselves, on our thinking, all of that. So, um, maybe you learned something throughout this process. A lot of times when we keep stuff up in our head and we don't write about it or talk about it, we just think certain things. Sometimes getting it out, especially through writing, helps us. It helps us see different things. It helps us with perspective or whatever it may be. So, if you feel like you've learned anything one way or the other through this process, that's something to write about. Other times students will, feel they'll write about it and they'll be like, "Yeah, that's what I thought all along. In fact, I think it more now." So if you feel like what I put here, that this exercise, this paper helped further cement your position that you already held before this, write about that too. These are just a couple of examples of the ways that you could reflect on this type of assignment. So don't feel like you're just, bound to these two. Um, okay. Comp 1 and Comp 2 had a lot of this. We're in advanced comp. I hope I don't see a lot of any of this really. When I say no fewer than 2 full pages, this is an MLA format with proper headings and spacing and all of that. You know, I don't want to see your heading up here in the corner with, you know, quadruple line spacing and then hitting the return key 5 times to put your title in the middle of the page. None of that. So no fewer, at least 2 full pages, proper MLA format. And really, I'm not expecting much more than 5 pages. I don't think you need much more to successfully respond to this prompt. Um, Somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 full pages, not 2 pages with one sentence, over onto the third page, that kind of thing. 3 to 4 full pages, MLA at least, not counting any posts up here that you might want to bring to aid in your argument, your explanation and your argument. We'll have this due in just about a week, and I think that's all I want to say about this. Okay, if you have any questions, we'll either talk about it in class or you can email me and let me know.